Hey y'all, welcome back to another episode of Grace Filled Podcast. So, I hope everybody has had a wonderful little weekend. Today, actually, for me, the podcast is coming out on Wednesday, but today is Monday and it's Labor Day. And I know a lot of people went to the beach. I'm pretty sure for today I saw a lot of my friends or people I know go to the beach. Today I actually went to the mall with few of my close friends, and we had a pretty good time. We did a lot of talking. Of course, we all like to talk, um, and we had some good conversations. And then there were some that I was like, okay, maybe we shouldn't be saying this kind of stuff. It's like, oh, that Holy Spirit within you saying, okay, it's probably not the best thing for me to be talking about, and that actually leads us into what we are talking about today, because I just couldn't really figure out a topic um to talk about today and discuss. And I was praying, I'm like, okay, God, what should I talk about? And it's one of those moments where he doesn't give you a clear cut answer about what he wants you to talk about or something like that. And so I did kind of hear something in my head okay, go to your little devotional book. I had this tiny one that somebody got me in 6th grade, and it's only a few paragraphs, but I just had this feeling within me just saying, okay, go find that little book and go read whatever the day is and what it's supposed to be about. So I did, and I'm gonna open up and read for y'all. And it's what we're talking about today. So this one says thoughtful speech. A truly wise person uses few words. A person with understanding is even-tempered. That's Proverbs 17:27. And so the devotional says, are there people that you know whom, when they speak, everybody knows they should probably listen? It's likely that these people are prone to listen more than they speak, so when they do choose to share words with others, the rest of us want to listen because we know these words have been carefully chosen. When we take the time to process what it is we want to say, our words will be more thoughtful, true, and honest. We will be speaking more from our heart and will be offering the wisdom and composure that comes with intently considering the words we speak. This sort of thoughtfulness is particularly important when we are faced with emotional circumstances. Rather than speaking out of a knee-jerking reaction, our deliberate words will help to ground us in rationality. It would be incredibly difficult to say something regrettable if we consider so deeply the words we speak to others. So, like I said before, this kind of hit me because of the fact of just gossiping and being careful what you say and doing all these sorts of things. And so today we're just kind of diving deep into that. We're starting off, I have a few verses that I really love, and I made 3 points about this. And something that my church does is we get bulletins each week, and there's normally something that says a few words and then 3 points that finish the sentence of the words that were already stated there. I don't really know if that makes sense to y'all, but I did that today. For instance, I put a person chasing after God, ... and then I have 3 points that fill in the blank. So let's go ahead and just get started with that. So I put a person chasing after God, number 1, is cautious when choosing their words. So I chose this little, this little sentence, or the ending of the sentence to go on there, because of the verse that I just read from the devotional. And I'll read it in my Bible. So Proverbs 17:27. This is a different version, but whoever restrains his words has knowledge, and he who has a cool spirit is a man of understanding. This is something that I am still working on, because I am someone that is very quick to speak, quick to react. Majority of the time, I'll just react quickly out of anger because of something. And that's not who we are called to be as Christians. And I put on here, cautious when choosing their words, because in the other version it also says a truly wise person uses few words. A person with understanding is even-tempered. So someone who is even tempered is being very cautious about the words they are using and when they say them. They're not just speaking very quickly in any scenarios. Like maybe they're just having coffee with their friend and chatting. They're not quickly speaking and saying things that they most likely shouldn't. And if they're in a situation, when it's heated, they're not saying something out of anger right then and there. Makes me think of the little saying like, as cool as a cucumber. That's what they are, as cool as a cucumber. And so I wrote 2 other points to branch off of that one about being cautious with choosing your words. The first one is gossiping. That's like the first little topic that I want to cover. And I'm not about to sit here and be a hypocrite and say, oh, y'all gotta work on gossiping. That's something everybody's gotta work on. And then sit here and be like, oh, I've never gossiped. I don't do that. I did it today. I did it a few hours ago. I was gossiping. I will admit that. Because that's the one thing I never want to happen is me sit here and be like, oh, I'm so perfect. I don't do that. Because it's completely not the truth. I'll be open and honest. I gossip a lot. I do. And that's something that Jesus is saying, especially this is why I'm talking about this today. Jesus is saying, like, I don't want you doing that anymore. Because the thing is, the change in your heart with any sort of kind of sin, whether it be gossiping or, I don't know, just literally anything you could think of that's sin, it's all about loving God more, I feel like. And I said this in another episode, but it's that respect factor. Because when you have someone in your life, maybe it's your parents, maybe it's another adult, somebody, maybe your grandparents, when you respect them and maybe they come to you and they're like, hey, this bothers me, I don't like that, then you don't do it. For instance, this just came to my mind. During the summer, my mom, she loves to be in the pool, but she does not like getting her hair wet and she will not put her head underwater. I think I've never seen my mom put her head under the water, ever, because she doesn't like that. She's told me stories about like why. There's a reasoning behind it, a legitimate reason just from her past. She's like, I don't want to be underwater. And I understand that. When I was younger, I just really didn't. And so I would splash her all the time, get it in her hair and make her kind of frustrated. I'd be like, come on, Mom, go under the water, let's go. And she didn't like it. Well, I learned, of course, because when you're a kid, you don't understand. But when I actually learned that, I have so much respect for her that I don't do something she hates because, I know she won't like it, and I love her and I respect her, so why would I go and do something that she doesn't like? And that's the same thing with God, because when you love God and you respect Him enough, of course we're going to mess up. Of course we are. But still, it's that love that drives you first and foremost. It's not that drive to be perfect or that drive to check all the boxes and never sin and do this and that. Because if you're driven by that, then that's not going to last. That's temporary because you're just trying to honestly satisfy yourself rather than God. Because you're putting yourself in that position of a God basically and saying, okay, well, I can stop sinning by myself. I can make this checkbox list or whatever each day, just check it off because I'm perfect. You can't do that. You're never perfect and you can't be your own God. So instead, you have to replace that with the love that you have for God and realize, okay, I love God too much to be committing this sin. There's been times where I'm in like the middle of sinning and I'm like, okay, I know God has a plan I know God has a plan for me. I know that He loves me and I know that I love Him. And so I'm not going to sin anymore. Because Satan's going to try to eat away at you and just tell you so many lies that aren't true that keeps you in that sin pattern. But once you fall onto God's love and His grace and His mercy, that's when you stop that sin. And that's the same thing with gossiping. That's probably something like I struggle with the most. And I think a lot of people do as well, because it's not one of those sins out there. Like there are some sins that's like, ooh, it gives you like the shivers when you hear it, like sex before marriage or something like that. You're like, ooh, we don't want to talk about that. But when it comes to gossiping, it's like, oh yeah, gossiping, whatever. But ultimately, a sin is a sin, no matter what it is. And that's something that needs to be confronted. Right now, I'm confronting myself as well. And so I put one or two quotes that I found. And the first one is, gossip is the devil's radio. And I love that one. So I put after that. So the quote was, "Gossip is the devil's radio." And I put, "Tuning into this channel leads to nothing but lies." Because majority of the time, like, what is the foundation of gossip? The foundation of gossip, it's a lie. That's all it is, the majority of time. And I believe that there is a difference. Because I used to think, like, when someone would say, "Oh, we gotta stop gossiping, it's better, we can't do that," I used to think, okay, well, I just can't really talk about anything. Like, that's boring, I don't wanna do that. I don't think that's the case. There are some situations, like, that for instance, with my mom, like, when I'm overthinking stuff, I have to go to her and be, "Okay, this is what's happening right now. I have this issue with my friend. I don't know how to resolve it. I don't know what to do." There's a difference in doing that and stating facts in a scenario about what is happening and trying to have a good intent about it and fix something, rather than going to someone, stating things you don't know, trying to stir the pot, cause some trouble, saying all these lies, like, "Oh yeah, so and so said this about that person," and then now they're mad, especially when it's not even your drama to be talking about, which I'm getting confronted again because I do the same thing. But I'm saying, like, I'm not trying to sit here and say, okay, you can't just go talk to people about stuff. That actually will go into our next point about, like, choosing the right people to talk to. But still, you've got to be wise when it comes to that and differentiating between, okay, is this what I'm like, what I'm about to say gossip and not true and full of lies and the devil's radio, or is what I'm about to say something that needs to be said because it's the truth and I've got to figure this out or talk to this person about it. You have to really decide between the two. And that comes with the verse about being cautious with your words, because before you just go ahead and speak and say something quickly without deciding if it's gossip or if it's truth, you have no way to decide that. But taking a step back and being cautious about what you're saying really helps you differentiate and decipher what exactly that is. So that's kind of my spiel about gossiping. Actually, no, I have one more quote. I heard this quote before from somebody talking about, like, eating and losing weight, but it says, "Once on the lips, forever on the hips." And I trust me, that goes with gossip, because it's essentially saying, when it's talking to food, it's like, once you eat the food, like, on your lips, it'll go straight to your hips and you'll get fat, something like that. But the thing with gossip is, once gossip is on your lips, it stays there. It deteriorates your heart. And it says forever on the hips there, and forever is not necessarily forever. And what I mean by that is, it's not forever if you believe in Jesus, because Jesus takes away your sins and makes you white as snow. And so if you don't believe in Jesus, then if you're constantly gossiping, constantly saying all these false lies and stuff, it's going to get to your heart and deteriorate it and break it down. But with Jesus, he builds you back up. So that's what I mean about the forever thing. But there will be drastic heart effects when you continue gossiping, because it's really one of those sins that takes you by surprise, because you think, oh, this is not bad, it doesn't matter, whatever. But that's like a slow sin that Satan uses to eat away at your heart and fill in that darkness. Because if all gossip is just lies, then you're just feeding yourself lies. You're taking in all this information that most likely is not yours to be sharing, if it's true anyways, and you're feeding it to yourself. And you don't need to be hearing that. You don't need to be thinking about that. It's just not something that is life-giving in that scenario. So in the end, gossip is something we really need to work on, and we got to be cautious about what words we are saying. So the second point I put for this one about choosing the right words, I put, "A friendship built on gossip will end on gossip." That actually goes with gossip before. I was about to go to another point, but I just remembered that quote. "A friendship built on gossip will end on gossip." I've had so many friendships like that. Like, all we do is go and talk about people, and then what happens in the end? I hear that they were talking they were talking bad about me, or I said something bad about them, then boom, that friendship is over. That is not a good friendship. It's not a firm foundation. Gossip is a steady foundation. It's like sand, and it will crash and burn and fall to the ground. That's what will happen. And you may be thinking, oh, well, there's nothing else to talk about. Then that's an issue. I know I say that because there have been times where I'm sitting in a conversation, I'm like, okay, I don't know what else to talk about. This is getting awkward. Oh, we'll just talk about this other person. I feel like we've all probably been in that situation, but that's when you also have to decide who are your right friends, because your right friends won't be sitting there and gossiping 24/7 with you. Of course, you'll have little conversations that you need to have about situations like I mentioned before, but it's not going to be just about other people and what they did wrong and what's happening with this person. Oh, that person broke up. That's not going to be your entire friendship, because that is not steady. So, moving to the second point that I put you have to talk to the right people and find the right people to trust. I know I talk about my mom a lot, but she is somebody that I know through and through and through and through and through. I can talk to her, I can trust her, I can tell her anything. And that's important to have. I know it's difficult to find those people. And so if you're sitting here thinking, okay, I don't have anyone, you do. You have God. I know that may not seem like it's an actual person to talk to, but he's always there and he's always listening. And I believe if you desire that in your heart, God's going to give you the desire of your heart, of that friend that you need, that person that you can confide in. And so make sure you're just praying about that if you don't have somebody like that. But I do pray that everybody does, because that's when you can just kind of unload. The quote I put with this one is actually something I heard that changed my life. And it said, "Vents lead to other rooms." This goes back to gossiping, but also with trust as well. Like, do I have a vent? Yeah, I have a vent right here in my room, right there. And this vent most likely leads to my other room over there. And so you think about it kind of like the rooms as people. If I'm sitting in this room and I am speaking, and my voice travels through this vent into the other room, the person in the other room that the vent is connected to can hear what I'm saying even when I don't want them to. That's the same thing with people, because people are like the rooms. You can talk to a person, but if they're not the right person, they're going to go to the other room, aka another person, and tell them what you told them and didn't want being spread. And so if you're not cautious about who you talk to or who you choose to trust, then your personal information is going to get spread around. And because people sin, it's going to be twisted. It's probably not going to be directly what you said. And then you're going to have a disaster on your hands, because gossip gets intertwined and all things go wrong. And then everybody knows your personal issues. So find people you can trust. I'm going to be honest, sometimes that is a trial and error thing. You may tell someone something and they're going to go and tell somebody else. But the thing is, you have to learn slowly, like, okay, that's the type of person that I cannot trust. That's a person I'm never going to tell stuff again to. And you learn from there. So of course you're going to make mistakes, but it's all about that learning process. So number 2, the second point I have, going with a person chasing after God, blank, 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 is a person chasing after God learns when to be quiet. Learns when to be quiet. I put, some info doesn't need to be shared. There are some things you don't need to say. And it's awkward for other people when that happens. Like when you're sitting there and you say something that is like, oh, I shouldn't have said that, And it could have been stopped if you had thought before you spoke. If you think before you speak, life just gets a little bit better, because then you're not saying things that you shouldn't. Especially if somebody confided in you, like we talked about before, with that trust factor, and then you go and just completely ruin their trust because you weren't thinking when you were speaking. And that's on you, boo. That was all you. You let your mouth talk before your brain thought. So that's very important to try to fix and be cautious of. Another thing to go with that is other people have ideas and no one wants to only hear you. There is one person that I have in mind, and I'm not going to sit here and gossip because we just talked about that, but it was just the type of person that they only talk about themselves. I'm not going to go name drop, of course, but it was a very difficult situation because I'd be trying to have a conversation with them, or I'd be in a group of people, and this person would always kind of just yell out like very loudly their own information. Like somebody else was talking about their AP class in school, another person was talking about it, and this person like, yeah, I passed all my AP exams. I'm just like, even though this one was super difficult, I still passed it. I'm like the number one in my class. I was like, okay, that's good. And they went and did it again. And it's like, at that point, nobody wants to hear from you because you are not letting anybody else share. For my mom and I, when I went and did the Miss Florida pageant, whenever I'd go to an event, my mom and I would always say, okay, we're going to let other people talk. Because I think it's like a psychological thing. But when a person is talking about themselves to somebody else, they already feel like 10 times better because you're talking about yourself. You feel more welcome, more comfortable. And so my mom and I like heard that quote somewhere and we were like, okay, let's put that to the test. So we would go into places and instead of talking about ourselves, we would just ask the other person questions about themselves, what they were doing, blah, 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 blah. And we actually learned so much about people and carried on like an hour or two conversations by shutting our own selves up and listening to what somebody else had to say for a change. And that's where I put the quote here. It says, when you talk, you are only repeating what you know. But if you listen, you may learn something new. So for my mom and I, we sat there and learned something new about somebody else because we stopped talking about ourselves first. Of course, we carried on a conversation and like mentioned a few things, but instead of being selfish and talking about everything possible, all of our accolades, all of our dreams, everything we've done in life, we let somebody else talk for a change. That was life changing because I got to learn things about people that I never would have learned if I hadn't closed my mouth. So the third thing, I had verses to go with this. So the second verse that goes with this second point is verse 28. So it's Proverbs 17:28, and it says, even a fool who keeps silent is considered wise. When he closes his lips, he is deemed intelligent. So it goes back to what I just said before about, just keeping quiet, learning when to say something, when to not say something, those social cues, little things like that. But also a lot of times, if you close your mouth, you are going to save yourself from saying something dumb. Like, I'm a firm believer that in class you should raise your hand and ask questions, but I cannot tell you the amount of times that somebody has not thought before they said something, and then you sit there and you're like, why did you just ask that in the middle of class? That was either the wrong time or the teacher just said that, and you probably should have just kept your mouth closed, but she didn't. And it really does not look good on you. And so for that verse, it's like you are deemed intelligent when you keep your mouth shut sometimes, because if you opened it, it wouldn't be intelligent. It wouldn't be intelligent words that came out of there. And then the third verse that I wrote down with this second point is, a fool takes no pleasure in understanding, but only in expressing his opinion. So if you're sitting there and you are not listening to somebody else and you're only talking about what you have to say, you are a fool. That is what the Bible says. That is a foolish thing to do, to sit there and only express your opinion about a situation and what you think is right and what you think is wrong. The third point I have that goes with the sentence is, a person chasing after God steers from foul words. This includes music. I'm talking about cussing, especially in this, inappropriate references, all sorts of things like that. I'm a sinner, done these things before. I've laughed at things I probably shouldn't have laughed at. I think I even said something today when I got hurt. I just said a word and I'm like, oh, I've got to not say that. I've got to work on that. But like I said, I'm being open and honest because something we struggle with. But one thing I have to say is cussing just does not make you sound intelligent whatsoever. My mom always says this, but she's like, when you cuss, you literally, it's like you don't sound smart because you can't find any other word to say but a word that is a cuss word. There's a wide vocabulary out there. There's a dictionary. I can give you one, but it's like you chose that word out of the many others you could say, so you just sound dumb. And those foul words cannot be coming out of our mouths as Christians. I'm still working on that. Like I said, I don't want to sit here and be a hypocrite. I'm still working on that. But just thinking about it, it's like, why would you want to be tied to those words? Like, I cannot tell you the amount of times I would look at somebody, whether that be a girl that I thought would be a wonderful friend, that I could be close to and it'd be great, or maybe a guy that I thought, oh, okay, he's cute, I like him. And as soon as they start cursing like that, it takes away who I thought they were, takes away their character. And I don't know if that's it for everybody. Some people may be okay with cussing, but still, it's just like, it's using nasty words. And there's a verse where is it? I can't find it, but it's like the words you say is like the outpour of your heart. And I think the reason when somebody starts cussing, like the reason it makes me kind of like, oh man, like no, kind of turn away, is because if literally all you're saying is curse word after curse word, blah, 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 every other word is just a foul word, that shows really what's in your heart. Because that means in your heart, there's something just not right there, something a little nasty, a little foul. And I'm not trying to be rude by saying that, but I'm stating the truth there. And that means that there hasn't been that renewal of the heart, that purification. Because if your heart is purified by Jesus, like I said before, you love him so much and you respect him, that those words don't pour out of your mouth easily. They shouldn't pour out of your mouth at all. They shouldn't just flow like a waterfall out of your mouth 24/7. And this also goes back to the music you listen to, because I'm a victim of this. Like, I guess I had it in my mind before, like, I'm trying to think about my journey with music. That's a weird thing to think about. But I got Apple Music when I was like 13 or so, maybe younger than that. I always loved music. I've always been a music person. But I believe I started listening to more like heavy kind of rap music when I started working out, which was in 8th grade. I really started going to the gym. I joined the weightlifting team, and at first I would just listen to Christian rap. And there's some Christian rap songs that are good, but some of them are not. They're just not, they don't have really a good beat. And so in my head, I was like, okay, I'm just gonna try out like one of these songs, then another song, then another rap song. Then I started really liking rap songs. And it wasn't necessarily that I liked the words they were saying, because if you listen to these songs, the words that are being said, the phrases they're using, like body parts they're talking about, it's all nasty. The way they talk about women or men, all sorts of things. It's nasty stuff that is talked about. And it's like, I didn't want to listen to that, but I liked the beat of it. And it also like spoke to the flesh part of myself, just the fact like a lot of them are hyping yourself up, like, oh, you got this, you're good, blah blah blah. Not necessarily like that, but it gives you like that adrenaline rush, like, okay, I can do this, I can go lift the weight because I'm him or I'm her, that kind of vibe in the music. And so I liked that. And so for years I would just listen to it, and I guess in my head I kind of thought, oh, it doesn't matter, like, I don't like the words in these songs, it's just the beat and kind of a few things that are said, it doesn't affect me. And then I slowly started like saying words that I never would have before. And I will never, ever forget this day. I think it was probably like at least 2 years, maybe 3 years ago. So before I could drive. So probably 3 years ago. I was going to a golf tournament for my school. Every year my school has a golf tournament. Like, a lot of the parents come and like play golf at the golf course, and some of the students get to take the day off at school and go play golf. I vividly remember, oh my gosh, this was bad. And this spoke to what was going on in my heart, the music I was listening to. But I was sitting in my dad's truck, and I think I was still probably like maybe 15 years old. Really, I cared about what people thought. I didn't want them to think I was crazy. I also think I had some anxiety going on too at this point. I didn't really know how to deal with it yet. And so it was probably 6 in the morning because I had to be there early. It was still dark. I was in my dad's truck and he pulled me up and we'd been kind of bickering and fighting on the way there. I had to have coffee. I was in a bad mood. It was early, stuff like that. And I had volleyball practice afterwards, so I needed a little bag to hold my volleyball stuff because my dad wouldn't be picking me up. It would be my mom picking me up, and so there was no way for him to get the bag to my mom, so I had to take it. And you're thinking about this, it's like, okay, you just have to take a bag in. That doesn't seem like a big deal. Well, I pull up and I kind of see like some other people there and they didn't have bags. I didn't want to look weird. I don't know. So I was fussing with my dad. I'm like, Dad, just take the bag. Just leave it in here. And I start to get out. And I left and almost closed the door. And he's like, Amelia, take this back, blah, blah, blah. And I remember I looked at him and I said, and then I said the F word and then bag. I still can't, like, I vividly remember this. And I remember looking at him and I'm like, we made eye contact for a solid, like, 5 seconds, just staring. And I'm like, I'm so sorry. I can't believe I said that. And the reason I share this with you, like, I don't want this to come across like, oh, she's a bad person, she curses all the time. Like, that wasn't it, but it was that outpour of my heart because, like, I firmly believe when you're in the heat of a moment, that's when the worst sides of yourself, your true colors are shown. And at that time, when I was listening to this terrible music and didn't think it would affect me, that moment proved to me, yeah, that music does affect you because in the heat of the moment, I said a word I had never said before in my entire life. I stood there and I was like, oh no. And then for like a week or two, my phone was gone. It was rough. It was bad stuff. But through that, I learned that you have to be careful about what you are feeding your mind and your soul. Because even today, I still struggle with music that I listen to. And I still get in that mindset of like, oh, it doesn't matter if I'm not saying the cuss words, even if I hear them, it's fine. But no, whatever you're hearing is what's going to come out at some point or another. It's like the truth. The truth will always come out. When the truth is hidden, it will be shown. When those words are hidden within your heart, they're going to come out of your mouth at some point. And so be sure that what you're feeding yourself is something that is good and valuable. Make sure what you're reading, what you're watching is good and valuable. Because I actually had a verse for this one. That's what I was looking at. In 19:1, it says, better is a poor person who walks in his integrity than one who is crooked in speech and is a fool. That crooked in speech, like that could mean lots of different things, but honestly, crooked just means bent and twisted, and so I believe that's what cursing is. It is bent and twisted, and it's not from God, it's from the devil. And like, when it comes to those rap songs that really, like, we all know what I'm talking about, those just terrible ones, like every word, it is saying something that is terrible. There's a part of me that believes like that is just worshiping something that the devil loved. Like, I feel like that's a weird thing to think, but some of those songs, it's just like, that is probably something that Satan would enjoy because it's just talking about sin in that song. And after the fact, like, whenever I listen to that music, it does not fill me up. It makes me have so much discomfort, like stirs my soul in a very bad way. And there's no peace there. And I believe that's because I'm listening to all these words and all these things that are not from God. They're from Satan. Satan would only want that stuff to happen. Satan would only want those words to be said, those phrases to be used. And so it begs the question of like, why would you want to be listening to that? Like, I understand it like more than anybody probably. Like, that music, it hypes you up. It sounds good. But then afterwards, it's that thing where you have to really ask yourself, what is more important? Is that in the moment desire to, I guess, or what's the word? I don't know, to please your flesh. That's the word I was looking for. To please your flesh in that moment, is that the most important thing? Or is what your soul is going to become as a result the most important thing? Because your flesh will go away. As much as you try to please it, it's going to go away. But your soul is with you for eternity. And if you want to spend eternity in heaven, like, on earth, we should be trying so hard to reach Jesus, to be like Jesus. And it makes me think of like just black like liquid or lava kind of going over your heart and like hardening it up and making it all yucky and dirty on the inside. That's what that music, I feel like, does. And that's where Jesus comes in and he clears all that away and makes it white as snow, as I said before. But still, it's that decision of saying, okay, I love you, Jesus. I love you, God. I love you so much that as hard as it is, I'm not going to listen to that music. And I still struggle with this today. It's something I'm having to really, really work on. And Jesus is calling me to work on it because it leads to a feeling that is not good after listening to music like that or saying curse words. But going back to the verse, better is a poor person who walks in his integrity than one who is crooked in speech and is a fool. You notice how the word fool and crooked in speech is together? Like I said before this, like when you are saying those words and those foul words and phrases are coming out of your mouth, you are a fool. I think people think it makes them sound like cool in some sort of way, or I don't know, maybe more popular, but it doesn't. It makes you sound unintelligent, as if you can't find any other words to use, and you look like a fool. So that was kind of like a harsh little ending there, and I'm not trying for it to be. But my prayer is that, like, if you're feeling confronted right now, because I did, trust me, throughout this whole thing, I'm sitting here like, oh man, I do that, I do that, I do that, I listen to that, I've done that. Like, I literally am thinking that the entire time. But just know if you're thinking that too and you feel confronted, that's the Holy Spirit stirring something in you and saying, okay, what you're doing right now, your actions are not how I want you to be living, but you can change that. You can become better through Jesus. And so I prompt you to go just spend some time in prayer, spend some time with God, spend some time in your Bible, and feel that transformation, feel that purification from Jesus just wash over you. Let the Holy Spirit, ask him to just come in and show you those areas that you need to work on, because he'll show you. And I'm not going to sit here and say that transformation will be easy peasy, because like I said, with rap music for me, or any sort of music that talks about things that I shouldn't be listening to, I'm still going through that. It's a constant everyday thing of picking up my cross and saying, okay, this is something I struggle with, and I gotta work today not to fall into that trap of sin. It's an everyday thing. It's not a one quick fix, because Satan's always going to try to attack you with things he knows you'll fall back into sin with. So it's all about being on guard, having the shield of the Bible up with you, and that is all about going and reading your Bible, spending time with God, and building up that armor that he can give you to fight the devil back when he tries to take away your happiness or tries to bring that sin back into your life. So I pray that everybody is prepared to, I guess, kind of go into battle with Satan, and really fight back and not fall back into those patterns. And I pray that y'all honestly just have an amazing, amazing, amazing week, and that God just blesses y'all. And I pray you find some little God sighting this week. Find something that makes you smile, and you can think of like, okay, that's God. He did that. I will see you guys all next week, hopefully for a little special podcast that I have planned with someone. I'm very excited for that. But I will see you guys very soon. Bye, y'all.